Joanthan Smith, halfway through season 1. How is the era looking so far? And then, yes, Michigan State basketball, they get their first commit for the 2025 class. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, happy bye week, everyone. Yes, let's try to relax this Saturday. It's going to be an action-packed slate of games. We'll get a little into it with our guy, Chris Vannini, who joins us today of The Athletic of the Until Saturday podcast. Chris, are you ready for this Saturday? I know our Spartans aren't playing. It's supposed to be a sleepy Saturday for us, but wow, this is the kind of Saturdays that you kind of dream of as a college football fan.
I mean, it's really the perfect time for a bye, right?
It's excellent.
You can enjoy Texas, Oklahoma. I'll be at that game. You can enjoy Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, USC, and you don't gotta worry about your own team and everything that messing up your Saturday or just distracting you. So, really, the perfect time for a bye, I think, right?
Amen. I wholly agree on all that. I've told my wife, I've told my kids, no one talk to me on October 12th. They're all in agreement. It's going to be great. I just cannot wait to just sink into the couch for roughly 12 hours on Saturday. I did notice you didn't mention Wisconsin-Rutgers. No love for that game. No, that's not piquing your interest. What gives, man?
Yeah, I have to look at the full schedule. I'm going to Texas, Oklahoma, and I'm just thinking about all that state fair food I've got.
Oh my God, yeah, that's gonna be excellent.
But yeah, it's a big weekend. There's big games Thursday night, Wednesday night. We've had college football. We're in the stretch now where it's like 50 straight days of football, one way or another. So
it is brilliant, and throw October baseball on top of that. You know, our Detroit Lions are rolling right now. We're smiling in the month of October here, Chris. This is sensational. Let's talk about Michigan State. This is Locked On Spartans after all. I'm getting my eye off the ball here because you know what? Like even way before you started doing work at The Athletic, Chris, like you did coaching search, all right? You are very well-versed in the world of new hires, new regimes. So you're the perfect guy to talk to about this. 6 games into the Joanthan Smith tenure here at Michigan State. And you think things are going how, Chris, overall in year 1 of Joanthan Smith?
I'd say pretty well and about as expected.
Okay.
You didn't expect to beat Ohio State. You didn't expect to beat Oregon.
No.
You split the BC Maryland games, which is what you really needed. And the rest is played out as it was. I think the back half of the schedule maybe doesn't look as difficult as we thought coming into the year. Iowa and Michigan maybe not as good as we expected. So I think there's a real opportunity to continue that push and get to a bowl game, but you knew this was going to be the killer stretch. And to start 3-0 to get that Maryland win, I think really was something you wanted to have. You didn't want to be 2-1 going into that stretch and potentially sitting at 2-4 at this point. So I think fans have to feel like pretty good. You know, it's going to be a rebuild, and I'd say you're right on schedule right now.
It's interesting with the rest of the schedule because just like you said, Iowa and Michigan, they don't look as good as their preseason rankings, but then you get your Indianas and your Illinois that look actually a little better. So I'm like excited for the rest of the season. I'm a little scared though. It is kind of a mystery, even 6 games into the season, which I know we're not supposed to say. We're supposed to have all the defined answers as talking heads, but here we are. I guess we'll just have to hold each other's hands and go into this last 6 games here. But look, obviously Michigan State, 3-game losing streak, not great right now. Let's try to make it a little more optimistic. What have you liked so far under Joanthan Smith that you think can actually like have some longevity here in East Lansing?
I think this team really plays hard and they don't quit. And I know that seems like a cliche, but like how many times under Mel Tucker would, you know, a 31-10 loss, a 38-7 loss be a 56-7 loss or a lot 51-10 loss? You know, like they've stuck around. And I think like I've always, ever since I heard Joanthan Smith, I keep thinking back to Mark D'Antonio's first season. And that was coming off of John L. Smith when things would just unravel and the season would unravel every time something would go wrong. And so we haven't seen that yet. They've kept fighting in games, and we'll have to obviously see how the second half of the season goes. But it gives me confidence that this is a team that's going to still be there competing with Indiana, with Illinois, with Rutgers, with all these games on the schedule. And if you can keep doing that, that 2007 Michigan State team coming off of the loss to Michigan, beats Purdue on the road, beats Penn State at home. They needed both those games to get to a bowl game. And that was the catalyst for everything that came after. Yeah. So I think so far you have to be pretty pleased that, yeah, they're making a lot of mistakes. They're turning the ball over way, way too much.
Yep.
But on the whole, it's not unraveling them. They're coming back from that. And I think that's a positive step.
Ridiculous or not ridiculous to call the Joe Rossi hire, the defensive coordinator, of course, a home run already. And I say, this might be ridiculous because, yeah, like you just gave up 30-plus points to Ohio State and Oregon, but look, not a complete, let's call it menu that he's working with of players. You lose Dylan Tatum very early in the season, Chance Rucker. I mean, the depth was already an issue. You lost Eric Harmon, Simeon Barrow in the offseason. All things considered, I think just the way that he schemes guys game by game and just, fits them into correct roles to at least mitigate the damage, despite how good the other team is or how shorthanded you are. I really like what I've seen out of Joe Rossi so far. So that's, I think, my biggest optimistic takeaway so far. Am I a little too ahead of my skis there, or are you liking where the defense is at so far?
No, it's the same thing. Again, I think the defense is playing hard and they're being put in good positions. They just don't have the horses right now. And that's going to take some development. It's going to take some player acquisition. We knew that was going to be the situation coming into year one. But again, like Ohio State had to work for those 38 points. Oregon had to work for that. It wasn't like,
that's right,
50-yard bombs and we're just running it up. They had to move down the field. And it's like, again, it's a little thing because they were lopsided losses, but
of course
we've seen much worse lopsided losses the last couple of years. And I do think that counts for something.
Yeah, unquestionably. Like that first half against Ohio State, a few plays go the other way, which were very well in Michigan State's control for the most part, other than the face mask. Like that could have been a one-possession game or a tie game, if not the lead at halftime against Ohio State. Now, I will also say Ohio State has a talent and the depth where I think they do pull away in the second half, no matter what reality that we're looking at. But yeah, it's different. It sounds so stupid, and you can only do this in year one of a rebuild. You can't be doing the rah-rah, hey, different kind of blowout from here on out. But truly, I think there is something to that here, Chris. And, not to just be full-blown, a homer on my end over here, but I worth maybe shining light on anything that concerns you, anything else that you want to see here the rest of the season, or what have you got for year one here?
I mean, it's Aidan Chiles in the turnovers.
That's fair.
He's not a true freshman. He is a redshirt freshman. This is his second year with Joanthan Smith. You'd like to see the decision-making be better. When he's off on a throw, he's really off. And Mike Leach used to always say, like, you can't teach accuracy. You have it or you don't. Yep. And it just seems very inconsistent there. And if you just cut down on some of these turnovers, like you probably win that Boston College game. It really is a fine line between some of these things. You like the potential. I'd like to see him use his legs more, although I did say this and then he fumbles on the goal line against Oregon. So obviously, again, got to take care of the ball. But I think you see a lot of upside there. You just got to play a little more within himself.
More to come with Chris Vannini, but first need to talk your ears off about ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotic your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly too, and you'll feel your best the next morning. Guys, hey, you know what? Lord knows that I like to mix in a drink or two, when it's game day. I just did it for the Tigers game, and you know what? Before I had a few brews, made pre-alcohol my first drink of the day. I sprung out of bed like Grandpa Joe and Willy Wonka today. It is fantastic. If I go tailgating in East Lansing later this year, yes, ZBiotics will be part of the game day plan. Here's how to use it. It's simple, guys. Step one, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Then step two, of course, we got to drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, and you know what? Get a good night of sleep too. Step three, well, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. And guys, let's save some money here. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're not satisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Also, guys, yes, bye week for Michigan State, but man, get your sports wagering done at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. No shortage of games. Later on in this chat with Chris Vannini, we'll talk a little bit more about the college football playoff. They have plenty of futures for that. And, well, at the very end of this show, the 5 best bets. We are 4-1 in back-to-back weeks. Go ahead, do all your wagering over at FanDuel. And you know what? Before you know it, guys, it's going to be Sunday, and NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll also get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Do it with futures, props, same-game parlays, just a little straight-up wager. $5 gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel.com. America's #1 sportsbook. Again, guys, it's FanDuel.com. I'm going to steal a topic of conversation I had with Greg Waddell. Now, I met him at, a bar before the Tigers game at Comerica Park, and he wanted my honest, raw thoughts on, the long-term projection of Aidan Chiles from the concern level of 0 to 100, 100 being the absolute most concerned about Aidan Chiles. He asked me, where are you at right now? I think I got to remember correctly. I think I said 40. I'm not at 50 yet. I'm not above 50 for concern right now. Chris, where would you be, though? Because you've obviously seen, plenty of gifted quarterbacks never really put it all together, but yet still just 6 games into him being a starter, this and that, not a lot of help in the offensive line. I can go on for days about talking points, but where are you at on a scale of 0 to 100 long-term about Aidan Chiles?
I mean, I'd say about 50, but it's also possible that he just becomes a really good player who also makes really crippling mistakes. Yeah. He can make the mistakes and also still make the big plays, which I think we've seen. You see it throw to throw. We saw it in the Oregon game. He makes an unbelievable pass on, I think that was 4th down, right? The deep pass. Then he fumbles it. Then he fumbles it the next play. And it's you see the whole experience right there. And if you just cut down on the one, you've got a really high ceiling there. And this is, I will say also, this is the most aggressive offense I think I've ever seen under Michigan State. Going back to D'Antonio Mel-Tucker, right. They're going to keep chucking it deep. Yeah. And so that's good for his confidence. You're not taking things away from him. But you don't want you want to be a little bit, I guess, careful with them. Make sure he's learning from those mistakes.
Remember in the offseason, I just said up and down, hey, at least this year will be more exciting than last year. And I feel like a monkey paw curled, and just that 2-play snapshot is a perfect encapsulation of just it's exciting. All right,
it Chris. Is, but scoring 7 points or 10 points, it doesn't feel like it felt at the end of the D'Antonio era where they were just going to put up 150 yards of offense. And
correct.
They're still firing all their guns to the very end, at least. And that does make it more exciting.
Just got to tighten a few things up, no question. And what kind of a person would I be if I didn't just compare my life to a bunch of other people's lives? That's just what we do around here. So, Chris, this isn't the only first-year tenure for a Big Ten head coach. Where does Joanthan Smith stack up against the rest of the conference? And just to go down the list really quick, Michigan, of course, Sharon Moore, Washington, Jed Fish, the big win last week over Michigan. Indiana, they're firing on all cylinders with Curt Cignetti. UCLA, not so much under Deshaun Foster. And then Northwestern, I just threw David Braun in, even though he was pretty much the coach all of last year. But for sake of that full-time, take the interim tag off, first-year head coach, sure. Where's Joanthan Smith stacking up amongst all these first-year guys?
I mean, other than Cignetti, I think everybody's pretty much where we expected them to be. Michigan lost a ton from a national championship team, and you can make some criticisms over what they didn't add to the roster and Orji not being the guy, and there are definite concerns. But we always kind of thought this was probably a 9-3, 8-4 team, and that's probably where they're going to end up. Washington played for the championship, but they also lost everyone from that roster, right. And so it's a rebuild there, and to sit at 4-2, they lose that game to Washington State early in the season. I think fans are pretty upset about that one.
Yeah.
And other than Indiana, which is 6-0 and looking good, but also like they haven't played anybody that good yet.
Correct.
They beat Maryland. It was a pretty close game for most of the way, but UCLA's terrible. A lot of these teams they've beaten aren't very good. I have them ranked, I think, in my top 15 because look, you're 6-0, but they haven't played Oregon. They haven't played Ohio State. You play those games, you're sitting at 4-2. Maybe the feeling's a little bit different. So part of that is just the schedule and the fact that Michigan State has played the two best teams in this conference. So I think Jedd Fisch is probably on track for what he was expected to do. Sharon Moore it's been disappointing, but I think if you're being realistic, he's so far on track. We'll see how the second half of the season goes. Yeah. UCLA is really bad. We knew they were going to be really bad. I would have some concerns there, but I think this was going to be a step back for the Big Ten in a lot of ways, and we knew that just based on what a lot of teams were losing.
Am I just a delusional fanboy just for saying, Joanthan Smith, I still think I would have near the top of that list because, Jedd Fisch, he had the nice win against Michigan last week, but you brought up the Washington State win. And also this major caveat, Jedd Fisch never sticks anywhere for more than 2, if not 3 years is really being somewhere for a long time for him. So if we're looking at long-term picture too,
I'd always said, I said at the time, and I still 100% believe, I think Joanthan Smith was the best hire Michigan State could have made. I wouldn't even change that now because you want the things that I said at the beginning that you're seeing from this team, the fundamentals and not giving up and just the culture had to be rebuilt at Michigan 100%. State. It always has to be there. And it seems pretty clear that Joanthan Smith is doing that. And it really is quite the timing because if Washington opens earlier, maybe Joanthan Smith goes there. If UCLA opens earlier, maybe Joanthan Smith goes there. He's from Pasadena. He coached at Washington. So the timing of all that is what led him to Michigan State. And I think ultimately MSU still has to feel really, really good about that.
And even like Kurt Cignetti too, because, not to have buyer's remorse or jealousy or anything like that, but they are having a great season down in Indiana. I'm not going to say that, it's all fraudulent. I think right now Indiana's a better team than Michigan State, but that's a lot of JMU transfers. This is a lot on Rourke, their 6th-year quarterback that's going to be here for just 1 year. And just like we've all talked about, just the luck of the schedule so far. So I do wonder what that's going to look like long-term, but I'm pretty happy with Joanthan Smith right now still, even 3-3 in the middle of this. So I appreciate that we were able to do that checkup here really quick or really long, Chris. I guess it's up to you. I just need to talk about college football just generally as a whole. I know we're, getting off into deeper waters over here, but the 12-team playoff, really quick, your take. Do you like the 12-team playoff? I know that we're still weeks away from it, but with all these upsets going on, it's oh man, that Vandy upset was great. It doesn't screw up anything with Bama's season though. Where are you at with the 12-team playoff?
I've loved it. And
okay.
I really don't think it's taking away from things in the way people expect. That was the talk about going into Alabama, Georgia. Oh, this game doesn't mean anything. Alabama won, but then we got an instant classic.
Yes,
we're always going to remember that Ryan Williams play. You got when Georgia came back to take the lead. There was that shot of the Alabama fan bawling in the stands.
Right.
You don't think we love college football because of what it means within those 3 hours on a Saturday. That's the primary focus, and that hasn't changed. But the other part of it is that these games do have stakes.
Yes.
Everybody was saying, Alabama, Georgia doesn't matter. They'll meet again in the SEC championship. They may not. Georgia goes to Texas next week. Georgia still has to play several difficult games.
Ole Miss, yes, exactly.
If you're suddenly a 3-loss team in the SEC, because the conference is really deep and bigger, that's the difference between getting a first-round bye, hosting a first-round game, or playing a first-round game on the road. It's a big deal. You think Kirby Smart thinks it won't be a big deal if they have to go play at Penn State in the first round of the playoff? And I really think the playoff is going to be a war of attrition. We've seen injuries start to stack up in college and the NFL. And normally the postseason, you play your championship game, you got a month off until the playoff starts. You're going to be playing 2 weeks later, and then a week and a half after that. And then after that, you're going to want a first round bye. As much as people are oh, the 5 seed, that's the best place to go. Yeah. It might end up being that, but you're not just going to get the 5 seed. You're going to have to work to get the 5 seed. Everybody in the SEC, except for Texas, already has a loss. Like, this
Mhm.
is going to be a very, very exciting race down these final 2 months of the season. So I think everybody was just thinking about getting in versus not getting in. And now you kind of need to start thinking about seeding and how big of a deal that's going to be. So I've enjoyed it so far.
And it's also like playoff type games going on in November. Like Ole Miss, they may have very well just lost their parachute. Now they got to go the rest of the season, maybe without another misstep. Or
Missouri. Same. Everybody thought Missouri,
Yes.
hey, they had an easy schedule. Well, suddenly they
certainly
get destroyed by Texas A&M. They've still got to play Alabama. If you're 10-2 Missouri, you may not be in at that point. And so, like, all of these teams have lost that margin for error. Georgia and Alabama already have a loss. Like, that was not what people expected.
I know, and like a lot of the people that were critical of the 12-team playoff after the Vanderbilt upset, it's like, oh, it's a shame it's not going to matter. Alabama might still make the playoff. But, oh, no, we still might be able to see Jalen Milroe in the playoff. And, like, even if they do make it, they're not going to get a crane and get those uprights out of the river over there at Vanderbilt. Like, that upset still has happened. It's still a magical moment, or even just to take it away from the SEC. I think Notre Dame's season is a lot more compelling than it would have been last year without this 12-team playoff. They lose to Northern Illinois. Who cares about the Irish the rest of the season? Now I think it's fascinating that, okay, well, can they walk this tightrope to 11-1 and see if they could backdoor their way into the playoff? I've been a big fan of it from the start. I just needed to just mental sanity check myself and make sure I'm not, like, in the minority here, Chris. I for one, like more good football games.
Exactly. There's a lot more games that matter.
Yeah.
And that is what is really exciting.
See, all right, you know, I'm glad we're aligned there. That makes me feel a little smarter now that a guy like you has also echoed that as well. Guys, that is Chris Vannini over there. You already know it, at The Athletic Until Saturday podcast. Chris, anything you want to shout out before, we let you get to the Texas State Fair and just clog those arteries?
No, man, just enjoy the bye week and appreciate everybody who subscribes to The Athletic and listens to the Until Saturday podcast. And always good to be on.
There we go. Guys, we will be back in a hot second. Michigan State gets Jordan Scott's commitment. We haven't forgot about 5 best bets. We will be back here in a hot second. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Gang, even though it is not game day, we're still rocking home field apparel from homefieldapparel.com. This bye week, I will still be looking the freshest. I might even throw on my Miami t-shirt or my Arizona State t-shirt, or hey, you know what? Gonna be a little chilly. My Hawaii hoodie. Yes, guys, I know that they have great Michigan State logos out there. I'm rocking the old vintage Michigan State jumping Sparty, and of course, well, the Kelly Green dad hat that they have over there. But I do dabble in the other schools because it's just fantastic. You're gonna look amazing in the vintage logos. You're also going to feel even better. I say this all the time. It is like an angel caressing your body when you wear home field, whether it's the t-shirts, the lawn sleeve t-shirts, crew neck sweatshirts, hoodies, or like I'm wearing right now, the hat. You will look and feel extraordinary in your vintage apparel. And gang, how does it get any better? Well, saving money, I think, is a good way to make this a little sweeter. Go to homefieldapparel.com. If it is your first checkout, smash in that promo code Spartan24. Spartan and the number 24 for 15% off your first purchase at homefieldapparel.com. Again, guys, homefieldapparel.com, promo code Spartan24 and save 15% off at homefieldapparel.com. All right, let's wade into the waters of basketball because good news. All right, guys, we did it. We got a commit for the 2025 class. Jordan Scott, not too long ago, he pledges his commitment to the green and white, selecting Tom Izzo's program over Maryland and Virginia Tech. 6'7", 185-pound wing player from Virginia. So I got to say, to pluck this guy out of the DMV area, beat Maryland, beat Virginia Tech, that's a nice little recruiting win for one Tom Izzo. Now, 24/7 Sports, They have Mr. Scott ranked as the number 2 kid in the state of Virginia and the number 11 small forward overall. So really solid player. Dove into his tape today when it really seemed like all the smoke was blowing to Michigan State in a positive manner. And I got to say, like, at 6'7", 185 pounds, is he a 2? Is he a 3? Well, hey, why not both? That's nice. We're actually, going to be losing one of these tweener guys, a guy that's kind of a 2, kind of a 3 in Jaden Akins. Well, here comes Jordan Scott to the rescue to fill that hole here in the future. Not sure if it's going to be instant impact, plug him in and play him as a starter right off the bat, but you know what? You never know with how MSU's roster can look next year. More on that later. Anyway, what else we see from Jordan Scott? He's pretty comfortable at putting the ball on the deck, dribbling, getting to his spot in the lane. Also has some pretty solid post moves too, which isn't something you really see out of, a wing player as young as him in the high school ranks. Certainly not, necessarily in the AAU circuit are you seeing a lot of that, back down a guy, booty ball sort of thing that you would get from a perimeter player. But Jordan Scott, I got to say, he's got it. And on top of all that, seems to look like a really solid shot. All right, so it's a really solid player. You can see why he's ranked as high as he is, top 60 in the nation. So what else you like out of this too? I'll say his measurables again, 6'7", 185-pound wing player. He's got more room to grow in his own body. So it's a little combination of, yes, he does have some things that he's already pretty polished at coming into college, like his shooting, but he's got a lot more body to grow into and be that physical wing player that, well, Tom Izzo wants back in his program more consistently, whether it was this year's transfer portal cycle with getting Frankie Fiddler, or you can also see it with how he's recruiting guys now. Big wings, physical ball, returning here to Michigan State. And you can see that with the Jordan Scott commitment. I got to say this. So that's just what I saw on the tape. Jordan Scott had a quote that he gave to On3 not too long ago about his own game. So I'll let Jordan Scott speak for himself here, saying, quote, "I can play inside and out and have really deep range along with good post touches." I check, I think, for that one. Honestly, I watch a lot of Candace Parker. She is one of my favorite players. Her versatility with being tall and able to pass and shoot, I like watching her. So a shout out to, of course, WNBA legend Candace Parker right there. That's what I'm talking about. And so for the roster next year, what does it look like? At point guard, Jeremy Fears, Trey Holloman, Jace Richardson. Of course, Jace Richardson, he could be a 1 or a 2. This is where it gets interesting here, and I think MSU will still utilize the transfer portal to get someone more experienced on the wing, because right now, your shooting guard would be Kurtang, all right, true sophomore, and let's say, it still goes pretty well for him this year. Okay, that means true freshman Jordan Scott is the next guy off the bench right there. And for small forward, okay, Garrick Norman, who, starting this season on a knee injury, who knows how much he will be able to play. We're, of course, wishing him a good recovery and that he can play a lot this season. So right behind Garrick Norman, I guess if you want to say Cohen Carr's a 3, maybe he's your starting 3. I see Cohen Carr's more of a 4. Nevertheless, pretty thin there at the wing right now because after Norman, after Carr, no one's really there. I still think that they will go for someone experienced to plug in that 2 or 3 or maybe even both in the transfer portal cycle, but we will see. So that's where it kind of sits right now on the wing. If you want me to keep going on next year's roster, of course, I think Cohen Carr starts at the 4. Jesse McCulloch, he could be really strong off the bench at center. Maybe it is McCulloch playing center. Depends on how much he develops this year. Then you got Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper. So all in all, this is a great pickup for Michigan State. It is going to be maybe a little bit of a project here, but again, I see some things that are pretty established in his game right now. Now, up next for the world of Michigan State basketball recruiting, Cam Ward. Not to be mistaken with Miami quarterback legend already, Cam Ward. He is going to be committing somewhere at the end of the month. 6'7". He kind of profiles as more of a 4. And I know that might seem undersized at 6'7", but our guy's got a 6'11" wingspan that he's working with. So the late smoke right now is that it's between us and Kansas State. So we will see. Again, his commitment is scheduled for the end of the month. Let's see if that gets moved up whatsoever. Also, today, this is per Joe Tipton of On3. Nico Bundalo, top 25 kids, 6'10" kid, like just an outstanding player by all accounts. He's done in North Carolina, Ohio State, UConn, and MSU. Very hard to get a read on this kid, and it's not just me saying that all cluelessly. I think a lot of programs feel that same way too. He actually had a Kentucky visit scheduled, And that got canceled with no sign or no plans whatsoever of even rescheduling that. So it is up in the air for a lot of people, whether it's just me observing as a Michigan State basketball recruiting person, or even just like in your national ranks, guys that are very in the weeds. They got no idea how this is going to shake out for Nico Bundalo. Of course, I wouldn't say no to his services, but we'll have to just stay tuned for that in between next week or next year, whenever this kid wants to commit anywhere. All right, just because we're hot on the basketball train right now, before we get to picks, you heard me bemoan this on Twitter. If you do follow me over there, I'm going to talk about Devin Booker here just really quick. And I did not have an opinion on Devin Booker before this all happened. I know that Michigan State lost a recruiting battle with him back in the day, a decade ago. Certainly more on that here a little bit, but I was very indifferent on him. And you know what? The Suns, earlier this week, they had their preseason game at Breslin Center. Very cool event. It's awesome. And you know what? You get the images, the video of Devin Booker in Izzo's office just chopping it up. Great. Like, awesome. I'm sure they do have an established relationship. I mean, the kid's from Grand Rapids. MSU had their eye on him very early in his career. Why not chop it up? And even cooler, guys, Devin Booker brought over shoes for Michigan State. I, for one, actually think they're pretty cool, but I'm the furthest thing from a sneakerhead, so my opinion really doesn't matter. But I'm fine with showing love to Izzo. I'm fine with bringing the team shoes. Before the Suns game, he warmed up in Michigan State shorts, which, okay, I think it's flying a little too close to the sun there. Now we're just infringing on being a little weird about it, but okay, fine. Like, who cares? Fire up the crowd. There we go. Now we run into where I'm going to get loud and where I start to have a problem, because you know what? There's a few things in life I really don't like. And, well, two birds with one stone on this one, because I don't like when people rewrite history, and also rewrite history to number two thing I don't like, to the point where they are insulting your intelligence. All right, I don't like my intelligence being insulted, especially when I know what I know, and I don't like history being rewritten. So when he has the quote after the game saying, quote, "I've always wanted to be a Spartan, and now I'm finally given the chance to play in the Breslin," I start to shake my head and wonder, what are we doing here? What kind of levels of delusion have we stooped to? Because, Devin, I have fantastic news for you. Hop in my time machine. Let's go back to August of 2012. Get ready. Sit down for this one. You did have the chance to be a Michigan State Spartan. Michigan State offered you 2 years before your commitment day, and they made you a priority through every week, every month, every year since they gave you that offer. Okay? And then, well, you committed to Kentucky, of course. Now, that's fine. That's great. It's a good decision. More on that in a little bit. But what is killing me even more is the people that are falling for this fake Hallmark story of a little plucky underdog that finally got to suit up and play in the court that he wanted to in college. I got comments like, "Oh, well, settle down. He's just trying to sell some shoes." How does saying any of that sell a single pair of shoes, first of all? Or just today, I had someone say, "Hey, a pro athlete can't show a college love." Not the issue. Not the problem. Come back, show Izzo some dap, bring us shoes. That's awesome. To say that you always wanted to be a Spartan and you're finally getting the chance? My goodness gracious. And another refrain I got a lot of is, "Oh, well, dude, he got a bag to go to Kentucky." Oh, thank you, detectives on Twitter. I was born in the morning. I was not born this morning, though. I know why he went to Kentucky. Okay? No kidding, he got a bag to go there. And you know what? Let's just stick on the Kentucky thing right now, because I'm not going to pit his decision to go to Kentucky as some sob story. It's Kentucky. Top facilities, top exposure, played on the team with 4 lottery picks that went 38-1. One of the most storied college basketball teams in modern history. All right? Kentucky is where he went. Not Syria, not some war-torn third world country where life was just horrible for him in college. The decision he made was objectively a great decision. An incredible decision for a college athlete. Don't turn this into he regrets going to Kentucky and now he's making it right here. But would you just all shut up and grow up? My God, he picked Kentucky. That means, Devin, you are a Wildcat. Or you know what? Let's say you just committed to the coach John Calipari. Go down to Fayetteville and chum it up with him down at Arkansas. All right? You made the choice. It turned out great. You're going to make upwards of $300 to $400 million playing basketball by the time your career is over. Please miss me with this whole fake Make-A-Wish. I finally get to be a Spartan thing. And for all you clowns out there that are just drinking all that up, my God, have an ounce of pride, an ounce of dignity, okay? My goodness, he doesn't need your help. He doesn't need you to play White Knight for him. Life's okay, largely in part because he went to Kentucky. So when I hear, oh man, I want to be a Spartan my whole life, you could have. You very easily could have. So anyway, just had to rail on that for a little bit. Before we get to the picks, my goodness, this show is going so late. Mr. Lockdown's going to be furious with me. All right, guys. Hey, so far for picks this season, we are 19-11. For the second week in a row, we went 4-1. We hit on every game except, well, the one that wrapped up at 2 a.m, under 55.5 for Miami at Cal. This week, we're going to hit a lot of the big games here. I like Texas minus 14.5 over Oklahoma. I think the Texas defensive line against Oklahoma's offensive line might be the biggest mismatch you see in college football this weekend. Penn State, USC, we're going to gun for the over of 49.5 for this one. And then the biggest game of the weekend, Wisconsin, Rutgers, we're going to go under 39.5. And to wrap this up with our 2 last picks, we're going to go 2 home underdogs. Oregon plus 5.5 against Ohio State. I love what we saw from Oregon's trenches last week as it pertains to this matchup, and also LSU plus 5.5 against Ole Miss. Do that wagering over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And guys, take care of yourselves this weekend. I love you all. Thanks for dealing with that rant there at the very end. And yes, hey, Jordan Scott, welcome to Michigan State. All right, guys, we will be back kicking it off next week with, hey, what happened in the scrimmage on Sunday? We'll also have some mailbag questions answered by our good friend Maxwell Klitsky. But hey, guys, have a great weekend. Let's mix in a water. Love you all. Go Green.